Good morning, everyone.
Good
Hello.
morning.
Hello,
Good morning.
Amar. Hello, Saluta.
Good
Hi, good
morning.
Hello,
morning.
Rolando.
Yes, good morning, good afternoon. Exactly. Thank you, Rolando, and good evening, because we have people watching from all over the world. So thank you.
Correct.
Thank
My
you,
side is
James, for
also good
joining.
afternoon.
Yeah.
It's 12:01 now on the East Coast.
Yeah, please leave in the comment where you're from and thank you for joining us today. And today we have an interesting subject is the challenges of an immigrant. And we are all immigrants here today. So let me introduce our guest, Amar. Amar is from Canada, originally from Pakistan, and I salute all the people from Pakistan who are joining us today. So he's an entrepreneur. He's an internationally recognized managing director, and he's also the CEO of Rebus International. So he pioneered the company from a startup to a six-figure annual sales revenue, 5 offices, 56 countries, and he's helping his clients to reinvent themselves for today's competitive global market. And the list is very long. I will let him introduce himself. Please, Amar, tell us, how did you made it? I mean, from Pakistan to Canada.
Hi, everybody. Yes, well, it's been a long story and a long journey. It's I left Pakistan in 1991 as a student. I moved to England first, did my graduation and education from England, and then from England briefly went back to Pakistan, lived there for a while, and then decided to move back up to Canada. At that time in 1998, I moved back to Canada. So I've been I was immigrant in 1998. I don't think if you live at some place for 24 years, you'll be still called immigrant, but that's a gray line anyway. So that's how it all started, and that's where we are at the moment. But there are various few steps along the way. Obviously, was a student in England. I did my graduation from England, then went back to Pakistan, wanted to stay there, but then I could not stay there for various reasons, cultural changes or whatever. Then in 98, decided to move to Canada, and I am here ever since then. And then there's a long story of how things happens, and which I'm sure we will discuss during the this podcast.
Yeah, well, thank you. So I heard you talking about moving from Pakistan to England.
Right.
And then you shared with us how you start your journey of also of entrepreneurship before going to
Correct.
Canada. So can you
Correct.
share more with
Sure.
our audience?
Sure. So I moved to England as a student in back in 1991. I was 17 years old at that time, and like every household in Pakistan, mainly people like to go abroad for studies. So I went as well. When I was 18 years old, I had kind of I don't know what's the right word, a disagreement, a misunderstanding with my dad, and I decided not to take any funds from the family, right? So I decided that I'm going to make it on my own. I'm going to pay for my own education, studies, whatever. So, I used to go to university 9 to 4, and then in the evenings, I used to work at various outlets, McDonald's, KFC restaurants, and things like that. And like every aspiring 18-year-old, the first thing I wanted to buy when I make some money was a car. So I saved enough money in 3, 4 months' time or 5 months' time, and I bought myself a car. Now, I used to live in England in a small village in Lancashire, up northwest. So I bought a car from somebody from a village, fixed it up, 400 or 500 pounds, I think that car was at that time. And I decided to make my first trip to London. So weekend to London, 3.5 hours drive. So I drove to London to see some of my friends. Over the weekend, one of the friends decided that he wants to buy a car, and he requested me to drive him to a car showroom, a car outlet. So I drove him to the car showroom, and while I was waiting for him outside and while he was inside, a car salesman came to me and started looking at my car and said, "Well, I really like your car. Do you want to sell it?" And I asked him double the price that I have paid for the car, and I ended up making that deal with him. So I realized that if I buy the cars from Northwest where they are cheaper and drive them down to London, I can make quite a bit of money. So that was actually the start of my entrepreneur journey. So I used to find cars in the villages, in the mountains, in Northwest, in Lancashire, in that area, and then I would fix them up myself a little bit here and there, and then I would drive them next week or after 5-10 days to London and sell them for double the money because I picked the wind on it. And that's how my first car was bought for 400, sold for 800. By the time I graduated, I not only have paid all of my education and expenses, I had a car worth £8,000 as well. So that was a really, it's just getting on an opportunity and trying to keep your mind open and picking up on something. That's what all business is all about, to be at the right place at the right time, but plus have your eyes and ears open. Sometimes things are right in front of you and you just keep looking at the long distance goal, but you have to start looking from what is around you as well. So that's how I started my entrepreneur journey, if you would say.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. It's really interesting. And I really love what you said that, you need to keep your eyes open because many entrepreneurs or many people overthink things, right? And when they
Right.
need to take a decision, they sleep on it quite a long time until the opportunity goes away. So that's, I think this is a thing that we must be really aware
Yeah,
of
well,
that as an
exactly.
entrepreneur.
Absolutely. And also, entrepreneur, it's to me, it's, anyway, trust your instincts, right? You have a instinct inside you which is telling you to do something. And obviously, you're not going to be right every time. Nobody's right every time, right? Mark Zuckerberg, for example, was wrong 11 times before the Facebook got a hit, right? There are many, many people. You only have to be right that one time. So just, it's better for me. It's always been, I will never die wondering. This has always been my motto. Don't die wondering, right? Try it, do it, get back up and do it again. If you do it well, that's fine. You have succeeded. If you have not, let's say, God forbid, you have failed for something, well, you still tried it. Now you can extract information out of it and try better next time. But if you don't try, you don't try, right? Nothing of nothing is still nothing.
Exactly.
Something out of something is still something that is more than nothing. So these kind of things, we have to trust our instinct. This is, I have always advocated that you have an inbuilt radar inside you. That's your instinct. Follow it, do it. It will always get you somewhere.
Yeah. Since we're talking about the challenges of an immigrant, yeah, your journey of immigration started in London, started in England, and how did you make it to Canada? And what are
Well,
the challenges maybe that you faced in the first place in London?
what
And
what journey that started in England was, I would say, was not a accurately immigrant journey. That actually started when I moved to Toronto. England, I went as a student. I was guarded at that time. It was arranged by the family and friends as a 17-year-old guy is going as a student. So that was a student journey, and like every other student, it's a new place. You That's the first time you get freedom out of your culture, right? So that's where a lot of people go sideways, right? You've been living in a controlled environment. You have your parents all the time guiding you what's right and what's wrong. You have society norms that you live in, which drives your everyday work, right? Every day, what are you going to do? Now, all of a sudden, you are in a place where nobody's around you. You got to make all your choices. There's nobody telling you what to do. So that's the adjustment. As soon as people can make that adjustment and get that discipline in their life, that's what makes or breaks the difference. This is the story we have heard so many times. I have heard this story over and over again, and I have experienced it. People move from Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Morocco to England to study. One of them becomes an entrepreneur, and one is still struggling with whatever he was there. What is the difference? They both ended up at the same time, at the same place, graduated from the same university. Is how quickly you can adjust to discipline your lifestyle. If anybody is telling you what to do, it's easier to do it, but to adjust yourself when there is no one around and telling you what to do, that's what makes the difference, right? So that's how, if you can culturally adjust yourself. And it's not easy to do. It's easier for me to say it now 20, 30 years ago. But during that time, it was not so simple. You are in a new place. You are away from your family, friends, everything else. You don't
Your
know
support
how to
system.
navigate. Your support system does not exist, right? So you got to take everything one step at a time. You got to take it easy. You got to sit down every other day and see, why am I here? That is the first question. People, students forget why they have moved to another country. They think, some of the students, and I've been there myself, they think is, now I'm free, my parents is not there, mom is not going to tell me what to do, so I can go party at night, I can spend my life the way I want to. They forget why they are here in the first place, right? So if always students can remember why they are in a country, they have immigrated as a student, is first, the first thing is to get educated. So as long as you could get your boundaries right, you are on the right track. But students' immigration is not actually considered an immigration. You are still protected. You are still protected in an environment by your family. They know that you're a student. You don't have those financial burdens like the immigrants, independent immigrants would have. You still have your support system. You still get to go back on the holidays. Your mom and dad are still following up with you. If you need the money, they are giving it to you. So that's a different kind of an immigration. That's more so to do with your personal development rather than adjusting into an immigration lifestyle, right?
Yeah, I like
The
what you said. That to ask. You need to ask yourself why you are here. So when you moved to Canada, what was the answer? So why
So
were
when
you
I
there?
move, okay, so when I moved to Canada, that's when the real immigration starts, right? Now you have a family. When I moved to Canada, my wife was 6 months pregnant. So now you have a family. Now you are in Canada, right? All of a sudden, a new country out from the other, away from everybody else. 12 hours time difference. And I'm sure a lot of people find themselves in this position. Canada has been an immigrants country. A lot of immigrants come here. So to answer your question, why I was there is I was there to make a better life for my wife and my kids to be. Try to have a peaceful and calm environment. And why a lot of people move from the countries where we are moving from. I'll give you an example. People from Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, why are we moving to Canada or States? There are two or three reasons. One, we all want to have a better life for our family. Now, what is a better life considered? The better life considered is the rights that we are given, the proper rights. We are equal in terms of the society, right? I mean, I have the same right to go to a police station than anybody else has. I'm not going to be mistreated. I'm going to be in a justice system which is supposedly better than what we have in other countries, which is driven by corruption all the time, right? So that's what, and the end, we all move in for stability of life. I have known people that are doing extremely well in Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, and decided to move to Canada, right? I'm sure this is the a typical immigrant story. A guy is a general manager in Pakistan or anywhere else, earning 300, 500,000, handsome amount of salary, has many people working for him, and now all of a sudden he is in Canada. Here he's struggling, the ends are difficult to meet, right? But he has moved, or I have moved, or everybody moves it for a better life, for a stable life, for a peaceful life, for a supposedly a less stressful life. That's what we all imagine when we get on that plane to come on this side.
Okay.
And then what happens after that is actually the strings of events that connects everyone after that, right? As I said before, people overestimate to the place they are moving to, and people often underestimate their own resilience, right? So these are the two things that actually form a way that a lot of immigrants get depressed in the beginning. You see a trend. Immigrants move in, they're very excited. You land in Canada, you're very excited. Excellent new country, you're doing this, you're buying the shopping. 1 month down the road, and now the time starts to hit where you started to get a little bit depressed. Now you're starting to missing your family, you don't have a job and things like that, right? So this is the trend. Why? Because your honeymoon period is over. Basically, when you're here, you have overestimated the country you are moving into. It's a country at the end of the day. The basics are the same. This is not anything out of the world, right? Basics
Yeah.
are absolutely the same. You have to find your work. You have to get on with life. You have to stop underestimating yourself. I think the struggle that I have seen over the past with the people is that they do not adjust to the things when they move to the west side. I give you an example. A guy who is a general manager in a clothing establishment in Asia, Morocco, Pakistan, when he comes here, he looks through the jobs. He thinks, wow, there is not a clothing establishment or there is no textile mill, so I cannot. My job does not exist here, so I'm gonna go work in a, whatever, drive an Uber car, whatever. Everything is fine. I always tell them, when you were working in a clothing establishment back home, you were not only a manager. So you have abilities. You have abilities for HR because you have hired people. You have ability to manage multiple tasks. So you are a multiple task. You are a multitasker. You have been doing project management all your life back home. So you have an experience in the project management. So the immigrants should open their mind up and not only look for, oh, my job is only, my profession was the textile industry. No, your profession was managing people. Your profession was project management. Your profession was to handle the sales. And that is same everywhere, right? So people open up. People should really, like, say, experience it. Put yourself out there that I am a project manager. So a project
Yeah.
manager in a textile facility or a project manager on any other job site is the same. I think that's where a lot of mismatch happens, and people are waiting for their own profession, and then they don't really direct themselves in the right
Yeah.
direction. And that's okay. I mean, this happens.
This happens, and this is so true. And I think this happens with people who also quit their jobs and become entrepreneurs or change their field. I think that they start fresh and they need to start over with everything, whilst in reality they come with a set of skills and with an experience that cannot be beaten and cannot be taken out of themselves, right? And this can be an added value to any industry that they are starting in, actually, in
Correct.
reality.
I mean, also, there's we must not forget, there's a reason you got that immigration visa, right? Because you were worth it. That is the first fundamental thing. The reason you got that immigration visa, because you were worth it. We wanted, any system that have allowed you to become an immigrant, because 99% of the time they've wanted you here. Your skill set was required in this part of the world. So that's first thing in your head. You should be confident like that. And look, people come over, you have to keep trying. As I always said, you got to keep trying and trying and trying, right?
Yeah.
You only have to be right that one time. You're not going to be right every time. As long as you can be right that just one time,
Yeah.
that's it.
Well, Amar, since we're talking about resilience, I would love to know what was the most challenging experience for you when you moved to Canada as an immigrant, and what was your strategy to handle this
Okay,
challenge?
that's a very good question. The most challenging thing when I moved as an immigrant, and I think that happens to every immigrant, is the finances, right? You are short on money. Usually, I'm talking about immigrants like me who moved in with a kid, does not have millions account, $1 million account to bring into, is a financial arrangements. Finances are the most critical thing for any immigrant, right? So you start working, you have to make your ends meet and things like that. And we judge immigrants, judge our success with how well we are doing in finance. And first year I was living in a one bedroom shared apartment, and then the third year I got to a house and then a car and things like that. So one of the things that I did, and at that time I have to thank my idea for that, and my wife had the same idea at that time. What we did is, whatever we earned, we spend half of it for first 7 to 8 years of our immigrant life. Whatever. If we earned $1,000, we were living, we spent 500. That is the most difficult thing immigrants have to do. And if they can do that, believe me, the life changes afterwards, right? So it's very difficult that you are struggling with your life. You have a very nice job now, and now you are making $2,000 and you were making $1,000 in the past, right? The first inclination is, let's go buy a nicer car, let's move to a better place, let's buy the better clothes, right? We do not plan it. This is the system that puts us in through. Our natural instinct is to move forward with the stuff. If we can resist for first 5 to 8 years and spend half of what you make, the rest 30 years to come, you're going to be very comfortable. This is the most difficult thing that an immigrant has to do. And believe me, I am a personal example to it. For first 5 years, whatever we have earned, if we earned 1,000, we spent 500. If we earned 3,000, we spent 1,500. If we earned 5,000, we spent 2,500. Stick to that mantra for 5 years, and you see yourself what's going to happen to you after those 5 years. The stability that you're going to feel confident with the time. In 3 to 4 year time, you will be very confident that you will begin to take some more risk in your life, because you know that if I quit this job and go for the better one, I have something to fall back on because I have saved half of the money that I've been earning. If you try to do a business, you know that if something goes sideways, you have it. So to build a solid foundation by like this, it's very, very important. I think that's what a lot of immigrants miss, doing that. So that, if I would have to say one piece of advice that I said absolutely to everybody, and this difficulty everybody faces, that if you, in your immigrant life, for first 5 years, 5, 4, 6, whatever, spend half what you make, that will help you a lot further down the line.
Yeah, well, it's indeed very good advice.
Yeah, and thank you.
It's
just
a personal experience.
Exactly, and just to put things into perspective, because I have a question here. We have a question from Muhammad Ali Sheikh, who says, "You are speaking wonderful. How long back you migrated to Canada?"
I immigrated to Canada in 1998. So I have been here. Oh, thank you, Muhammad, if you are listening to it. Thank you for your kind compliment. I moved to Canada in 1998, so I've been here 24 years now.
But we can say for sure that your advice with saving half of the money you're earning is as valid today as it was 24
every
years
time.
ago, right?
Yes, absolutely, every time. Everything is built on a foundation, right? You cannot build a house if you don't have a foundation, and foundations are built differently. So for a financial background or financial stability in your life, and to get that stress out of your life, you have to build a financial foundation. And to do that for an early immigrant is to save half. Don't get into the temptation. It's very easy. And the other thing that a lot of immigrants do not get better, because they have not had this experience, is managing the credit. Now, credit is not available in Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Morocco, or it's not used to be like it is available here. Money is easier to access here, right? You get a credit card of $5,000, you get a credit card of $10,000, you have financial lines are available very easily, right? So if you have to learn to manage your credit, that is the other thing, that do not misuse the credit. Don't overspend on your credit card, right? But in the same sense, you have to build up your credit as well. Credit files are, and this is also to every immigrant who's wanting to come, the Canadian or the North American system works on the credit report. So you have a good credit report, you get better loans on a cheaper interest rates, right? But you have to build your credit report, you have to build your credit ratings, and find out how you can do that. If anybody wants to reach out, I am happy to help it. Have a credit card as early as possible. Spend everything on the credit card, but pay it off before the end of it. So let people see that you are responsible in using the money that you have been given into. And that is not only going to help you build your credit report, it's also going to help your own personal development, that I can manage this. I know how to do this. If I'm given something, I know how to make a better use of it. So
Exactly.
that's one thing that's very, very important that immigrants should be doing as well.
Yeah, very, very good point, because when people struggle with the basics, which are the financials, you
Yeah,
don't evolve as a human being. Because when we talk about resilience, very often we talk about the mindset, and we talk about the emotional part, we talk about many aspects, because resilience, it cannot touch any area of our lives. But when there is a struggle at the basic level, which is the financial, the rest is not accessible, because you are struggling again with the
correct.
basics.
Correct. Well, look, it's a human nature. You have moved to a different part of the world to make your life better. And how we judge making life better is we are doing better financially. This is the first indicator that we give to ourselves. How am I doing better? Because I have a better financial life. So uh, that's a fundamental thing, that you have to learn the financial system and ask people. I mean, anybody who's coming, who's an immigrant, I'm sure they have friends or family who has immigrated before you. Ask them how to do it. Ask them what is the right way to it. Seek advice. It's okay to ask. You don't know everything. You're not supposed to know everything. Don't be shy of going to a friend or a family saying, I don't know this, can you help me do this? Ask.
And there is another thing also, which is I think people coming from all over the world, from countries like Pakistani, like Romania, where I'm coming from, like Morocco, where Hanan is coming from, we're not educated and we don't know that the authorities here are really supportive, right? For me,
Right.
I was really shocked. Actually, I was really surprised to go to the tax office here and see how helpful people were actually,
Indeed.
Right.
only in answering my questions on the specific topic, but in giving me advice, because they know
Right.
what people who move into a new country are struggling with, because they've been doing that. They've been working with people like us for such a long time. So
Correct.
authorities here are really supportive when it comes to helping you understand the system, helping you which are the resources that you can access, helping you really have a better uh, way moving forward when it comes to everything that you need to be settled in, to be successful. Because most, at least in Canada, and we know that, I'm sure that it's the same thing in Toronto, most of the people working for authorities are either immigrants like us, or they have immigrant parents and they know all the challenges as they went themselves or their family through them as well.
Well, Canada is all about immigration. The country has been built up on immigration. The multiculturalism that exists here is the definition of that. Absolutely. Help is available. Look, help is available everywhere. Immigrants wants to help other immigrants. It is a support system that we have here. And then again, going back to the same thing, don't underestimate yourself. Think about it, calm yourself down, and take one task at a time. If you go through your task one task at a time and trying to see what you're doing, you'll be okay. There are reasons that, again, there is a reason that you got selected to be an immigrant to this part of the world. You have it. You got it. You just need to get yourself out there and try to handle it one step at a time. I mean, look, challenges of an immigrant have changed quite a bit, right? In 1996, 97, 95, Google was not a household name. You could not Google everything. Now, an
Exactly.
immigrant, before he has to move from any part of the world, can Google the streets, can Google the school, can Google everything, right? So the dynamics have changed quite a bit. You can now even apply for the jobs before you get into this part of the world. You can have online interviews, you can have everything lined up. And, there was a time when people had no idea. People have absolutely did not know. When there was a time when the phone calls were a luxury doing back home. I remember when I moved in 1998, to call Pakistan was $1.15 a minute, and you would call for 3 or 4 or 5 minutes, and that was the end of it. Now it's 7 cents a minute. So, connection and the FaceTime did not exist. So if you were missing somebody, you were missing somebody. Right now, if you're missing somebody, you get on a FaceTime and you do it. But still, struggles are still there, but there are more tools to better handle the stress. There are more
Exactly.
tools to be better educating yourself and use them. That's why they are there.
Awesome. Well, what would be, Ammar, what would be like your advice if you have to wrap up and give our audience who maybe intend to go for immigration or are already immigrants or I don't know in the future maybe. So what would be your
Well,
advice?
my advice will again, my advice would be that if you do decide to make an immigration to another country, it is a difficult step. I'm not saying it's easy. It's a difficult step. But if this is what you have decided to do, follow your instinct, go for it, trust in yourself, trust in the system that you are getting into, and be keep your eyes and ears open all the time. Keep the opportunities coming to you. Don't limit yourself in applying for only certain jobs. Expand your horizon, expand your career horizon as well. As I said, if you were a manager of a plant in Pakistan, you can be a manager of a plant here as well, right? So start getting into the system as soon as you can. And it's just hard work. Hard work. Take it easy. Don't underestimate yourself. Don't overestimate the place you are getting into.
Exactly. I remember I had a friend who used to tell me always consider yourself part of the country. Don't consider yourself a stranger.
Correct. And like somebody said here also, do research. This is what I said. I mean, research nowadays, you have the tools to do the research. Do the research. Look at everything else. First of all, also the one more important thing is choose the right place for you, right? It is don't just take an immigration to some place because it's available. A lot of people just jump into it. Maybe you are a person who wants to stay in a warm environment that makes you happy, that drives you better. Some people don't care about the environment, right? Some people want to be in an arm distance or a 5 hour 6 hour distance from their parents. They have a very close bond to it. So decide the place of your immigration very carefully. This time, I think in next 5 or 6 years, being on various organizations, immigration will be a very fundamental part of almost every Western world. Germany is looking at immigrants. Portugal is looking at immigrants. Australia had just tripled their immigrants intake. I've been
Yeah.
there so many times as well. Canada as well now will get back to an immigration resurgence. So do your research. Which part of the world suits you better? Which part of the world have more opportunities that are more in line for what you've been wanting to do? Research. You have the tools available. Do it.
This is so
Absolutely.
true, and thank you for your advice. And I think this is really important to really figure out beforehand where you're going, if that place will be suitable for you. And for me, for example, I chose to move to Vancouver in Canada just because of the weather, because I know how important the weather is. And I think this is really important because people do overestimate sometimes the country, but they
Right.
underestimate the conditions that they're going into. And we're coming from warmer countries, right? If you go to Canada minus 40 Celsius in the winter, then you're gonna have a hard time there. So these are
But you
things
get
that
used to it. Yes, you will get
exactly.
used to it. Yeah, if
You
that's the
tell
right
me.
place for it, you get used to it.
Some
Absolutely.
people do, some people don't. For me, for
Yeah.
example, I
Correct.
wouldn't be able to live in such a cold weather, right? So you need to know all these things. You need to be true to yourself, and you need to, exactly as our viewer said, and as you said, do the research in advance, so
Right.
that when you make your choice, it is really something that you can uh, uh, move on with and settle and do other things,
Correct.
spend your
And
energy and your time doing other things instead of
a-
feeling
as
sorry
this
for.
as this title we had for the entrepreneur, the one last thing that I want to touch with the immigrants, that if you ever were thinking of becoming an entrepreneur, this Canada, for example, I speak for, this is the place. You have a support system in place. You can start being an entrepreneur, being, if you are an IT professional, you can be a freelance consultant. That's your own gig, right? If you had a shop back home, now you can have a shop here. You have credit facilities available. This is the heaven. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you will get all the guidance in the world. Banks will give you credit line. If you even have the first day you have a business license, you go, banks will help you. as long as you have a good business plan in mind. Maybe you were working or you had a job back home, but think about becoming an independent entrepreneur here as well. There is nothing like working for yourself, and absolutely, it is the most wonderful feeling that you can have.
Exactly.
But when you're working for yourself, you're working more. Don't underestimate this as well. A lot of people thinks that, like, I'll give you an example. I am the CEO, whatever, now managing director. So I work the most hours in my company. I work 16 to 18 hours because I have to work with my Italian office. I cannot sleep early because I have to be connected to the office in Australia, which is on the other side of the world. Then you have to do it on, you have to work on the weekends as well. If you're deciding to be an entrepreneur, get your socks up. It's a lot more work than a job, because if you're working for someone, you go home, that's the end of it. It's a different mindset to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and as Rolando says, save, build credit, pay taxes on time, and build trust.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's what I think Ronaldo is 100% spot on. Build up your credit, pay taxes on time. Well, you're gonna have to pay taxes on time, because if you don't pay your taxes, you're not gonna get anywhere with. If you make any credit application and you have taxes owed in Canada, for example, you're not gonna get approved. So you gotta be paying taxes on time. Be responsible. Absolutely, that's the first thing.
Yeah, and build a mindset. Well, thank you so
Build
much.
a mindset.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, everyone who joined us today. James, Benaisa, Adele. Thank you, Walid. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Jess. I'm sorry if I pronounced the name wrong. Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you, Khalid. Thank you, Rolando. Thank you, Abdulaziz. Well, thank you, LinkedIn user. Thank you,
Yes.
everyone. And
Thank
yes,
you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Salita.
Pleasure
Yeah.
talking to you guys.
And before we go, Amar, where can people connect with you?
On LinkedIn. Anybody who likes to have any more information or talk to me or arrange a coffee chat, whatever, LinkedIn is the best thing. My name is same on LinkedIn, Amar Zaidi. Just reach out. I'll be happy to help.
Thank you so much, Amar. Thank you for your precious advice. I hope people will be reaching out to you if they have more questions. Feel free to connect to Amar. Feel free to connect to Hanan and to myself as well here on LinkedIn. Until next Tuesday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, when we have the next episode of The Path to Resilience. Everyone, stay safe, stay well,
Yeah.
and have an awesome rest of your week, everyone. Bye,
Yeah.
everyone.
Amar,
Yeah,
stay
you
with
too.
us. Yes.
I will.
Bye, everyone.